Good morning, good morning, good morning. Thank you all for joining. Those of you that are watching this live, those that will watch it at a later time. Thank you for taking time to visit my page as I bring some very important information to the table that I'm hoping will be shared in preparations for the new upcoming ruling that is taking place on November 18th. 2024, which will impact an estimated 170,000 transportation professionals, whether you are holding a Class A CDL license and or if you have a permit, or if your business actually depends on a Class A CDL driver. In this very short informational webinar, I will be going through some very important points that you want to be made aware of, one, and two, double check to make sure that you yourself are in good standings with the clearinghouse and or do your due diligence to verify if your employees that this ruling will impact are in good standing as well. My name is Tamaris Massengale, and I am the owner of both UTL Dispatching and UTL Compliance. I've been in this industry for 5 years, professionally in some shape, way, or form, whether it was managing compliance and or running my own trucking company. Here recently, starting the compliance factor as it relates to having a consortium. And I just really fell in love with the industry in regards to how lucrative it was. For one, let's just be honest. You can make some really good money in this industry. But two, uh, it aligned up with my passion, which is compliance management and introducing industries that are felony friendly, that are youth friendly, and something that veterans can get into as well. So my nonprofit Options Transitional Living Program, that's what we do, is we look for opportunities to cover all aspects of an individual that's trying to have a second chance, right? So whether you're coming home, or if you're aging out of foster care, or if you're a veteran. And I found that trucking in particular was an industry that was very laxed, for lack of a better term, in regards to it's something you can get in really quickly, and most people that are coming home, whether from doing time or being active, are looking for something that they can get into quickly and be able to make some really good money. So transportation, trucking, a truck driver, it's felony friendly, so it doesn't matter about your background. There's always an exception, so I don't want anyone to look at this and say, yes, it has, you can't have this. It depends on what project you're working on, what type of loads you're pulling, of course, but generally, having a Class A CDL license will afford you to make some really good money if you are educated properly. And I have to throw that caveat out there because we have enough people in this industry that give you false ideas in regards to how much money you can make, without giving you the ugly part, which is the part that I am in, which is the compliance. Compliance is very big in this industry. And unfortunately, there isn't enough conversations in regards to this. There isn't enough resources other than going directly to the source, which is FMCSA's website, to learn more about what they require you to do in order for you to stay active on the road without any issues. So with all of that being said, the first part that I want to discuss is the star of the show, which is the FMCSA Clearinghouse Ruling Part 2. And I'm just going to give you a little background, a little context before we go into part 2 for you to understand what part 1 was. So the FMCSA Clearinghouse Part 1 was initiated a couple years back, and for the purpose of being able to monitor and for individuals that are on the road that have a Class A CDL status, for them to be in one central location where they can monitor their safety their safety status, right? So that's if they've had any violations, they've had accidents, they've had positive drug or alcohol testing. All of that information was to be gathered at one point in time, right? And I'll share stories in regards to my personal experience and why I became even more passionate about this industry and making sure that factual content is put out there in regards to being in this space. So thank you for joining this morning, Ms. Hawkins. Let's see. And if y'all see me look over to the side, it's because I'm looking at some notes, because I want to make sure that I get as much content in this session as much as possible, because this ruling that's taking place on November the 18th, as I stated earlier, is scheduled to impact over 170,000 individuals. Now, I don't know if you guys have paid attention, but here recently, a very big corporation just let go, I want to say it was like 600 plus individuals abruptly. And this is right before the holidays are getting started. So we already had an issue with employment across the nation, and then now another, under 1,000 individuals are impacted by a corporation's decision to close its doors abruptly. And we're seeing this become more and more common. And this was a very big corporation that worked with United States Postal. So these are individuals that abruptly are told, here's your last check. Have a nice life, right? So a lot of this is going to be happening. And in my personal opinion, as I've said time and time again, I find it to be a coincidence that all of this is happening in peak season, right? This is a time where most of us were waiting for the rates to start changing a little bit, a little more work be putting out there because we have the holidays, right? So with that being said, going back to now the Clearinghouse Ruling Part 2. So now that you're already in the database, what's happening, because unfortunately we had some people, and I try to be as politically correct and kind with my verbiage, because I mean to inform and educate and not to offend. But the reality is we have good people in the world, we have bad people in the world, and it doesn't matter what industry it's in. And I'm sick of good drivers, a good trucking company, good dispatchers, good brokers being labeled by being categorized by these labels that people that are in this space are doing things they're not supposed to, right? So that makes it even harder for us to get dedicated routes and make consistent revenue, because you have to go through all this red tape, one, to prove yourself, and two, to make sure that these governing entities such as DOT and FMCSA are okay with you being active. So with all that being said, so you were put into this database, right? And it was created because unfortunately there were a lot of people that were driving dirty out there on the road, and it was hard to manage who's doing the right things and who's not, until they got pulled over on the road, or they had an accident and now it's being reported, so on and so forth, right? So now this new version that's getting ready to take place November the 18th, in some states, and that's why I'm putting such emphasis on this conversation, because some states have already started this process. What has happened is now your local DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles, whatever state you're in, now has access to this clearinghouse. So any type of violations that you had, or specifically having a positive drug or alcohol testing or refusal of a drug and alcohol testing, it now will put you in a prohibited status inside of the FMCSA Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse database. I know that was a lot, and I'm going to break it down. So essentially what happens prior to this new ruling that was that's getting ready to be implemented on November the 18th, DMV really didn't know about any violations that you had unless it was reported. For example, if you had a DUI, right? But that's basically, normally that's done if DOT pulls you over or as a civilian, right? But other than that, they wouldn't have any other way to know that you weren't registered with a consortium which would house that information if you refused those tests or if you had positive tests, right? So now all of them are communicating now. So if you have a negative or you have a prohibited status in the clearinghouse, now your DMV will be able to see it. They're going to be notified of it, right? So the importance of this is, one, we're all humans. So we know with this industry, in any industry where you're dealing with computers, you have human errors. You want to make sure that you be proactive and you double check, one, to make sure that you are registered with a consortium that is FMCSA approved. You have a lot of, mom and pop shops that's popping up because it really doesn't require a lot of effort to start a consortium, but you want to go onto the FMCSA DOT website and look up approved consortiums and make sure that they're on that list. I'm going to share with you later why, but you want to make sure that you are registered with a consortium, one, and two, that you are registered in the clearinghouse, right? I will show you. I will show you what that looks like. So this is, can you see my screen? Let me know if you can see my screen. Trina? Okay. Okay. So this is what the FMCSA Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse website looks like, right? And if you're not familiar with this, I know some people have hired compliance managers or someone that handles all their permits and things of that nature. So you want to double check with that person that you've paid. Make sure that they have you registered here. Okay. If you are not sure, if you handle all of your compliance yourself, then you want to go up here and click on register. And then once you've registered, you have to go through these steps, which is going to require for you to use a username, password, but then there's additional steps that will require you to verify your identity. And this is through secure.login.gov, right? So you can't get to any other step until you finish it here, right? So once you have registered, there's a lot of content and a lot of information in regarding what they require for you to be able to be on the road and be legit, right? So here's the information that I'm speaking about. You can research yourself. I always, no matter what guru or educator that you choose to follow or listen to, make sure that they can lead you to the source of where they're getting the information. So it says here on their beginning November 18th, having a prohibited clearinghouse status will result in losing or being denied a commercial driver's license. There you have it. Period. So what does that mean, being in a prohibited status? That means that you have either you have either refused to do a drug and alcohol testing, or you didn't make sure it was reported. That has happened too, where individuals have gone to a little mom and pop location to do the drug and alcohol testing, and maybe they didn't submit the paperwork correctly, or it wasn't reported, but they have to be registered with FMCSA DOT, because you will select them once you have registered. One moment. Why is it not bringing back up my page? Hold on. Okay, there we go. So that's why it's important that you make sure that the person that you selected is someone that is registered with inside of the portal, because once you have selected this person, you can't go back and look for someone else. So you want to make sure this person knows what they're doing. Whomever you have managing your compliance management, they should be aware of this. They should have notified you of this, because that's part of their responsibility to make sure that you are aware of this. So a prohibited status, of course, means that at some point in time, either you have passed, you have a failed drug or alcohol testing, or you refuse. That's pretty much what that is, right? And once you have that status, oh, let me back up a little bit. So this thing that's going into effect on November the 18th, what's happening is you have 60 to 90 days. They have 60 to 90 days for this downgrade process. They will notify you by mail only. I haven't heard anything different. Everyone that I've am during my research, they have notified you by mail. And this is why I wanted to put so much emphasis on this, because I don't know where we got this idea somewhere down the line that you don't put your correct mailing address on your driver's license, but you want to make sure that you have a correct mailing address for this reason here, as well as you want to make sure that you are updated in your FMCSA safer way. Let me see if I can pull that side up too, because I don't think people know where that is. So I will put this in the chat, but the website is www.saf like Frank, E like Edward, R like Red, .fmcsa.dot.gov. This is where you can check what your, and I'm going to put the link in the chat. If you're a dispatcher, you should already have that email, that website, because that's what we use to find our carriers, right? And if you didn't know, you're welcome. I just told you. But those are two places, well, three places you want to make sure that you check. You want to check your safer way, make sure that that has a current address for your mail to go to. It doesn't necessarily have to be your home address, but it needs to be a current address and telephone number where they can contact you for these, because they don't have to go over and beyond to tell you. It's your responsibility. You have a license. Therefore, when you were, you successfully passed, you have a license. So you're required to know what it takes to keep that status, right? Same thing with your regular driver's license. It's your responsibility to have a correct address where they will contact you. They're not going to pick up the phone and call you. They're not going to do that. That's too many people. That's too many people. They're going to send a generated letter out to whatever address that you have on file, And if you have not been checking your mail, or you got a letter and you just blew it off, you might want to double check. If it says DOT or FMCSA, you want to check, because they're only going to notify you through mail. Okay, I think I put enough emphasis on that. You also want to check in the clearinghouse to make sure that you are not labeled as prohibited. If you are a trucking company that that depends on CDL Class A holders to do deliveries, and you have not been made aware of this, you need to make sure that you do so immediately. Why? Because they, FMCSA will hold you, let's see, let me go to it. Let me read it verbatim. Hold on. I don't like to, hold on. Is any of this making any sense so far? You can come off mute.
Yes, I'm taking notes.
Okay, awesome. So employers can be held responsible for service agent errors and resulting in civil penalty actions for non-compliance. So just because you have a whole bunch of drivers, they're like, well, it's your responsibility to make sure that they are safe and that they are on the road legally, not illegally, right? So it's equally important for you to make sure that your drivers are not in a prohibited status. If they are in a prohibited status, let's see, service agent violations may be directly addressed under the, that's not what I wanted. Actions against service agents. No, that's not what I wanted. Essentially, well, you should already be registered in a consortium anyway. It is required for the drivers and trucking companies to be registered in a FMCSA approved consortium. I mentioned earlier that I just started mine, UTL compliance. We are certified through FMCSA. You can look us up on the clearinghouse website and select us as your certified consortium manager. And what that means is that we will be responsible for making sure that you are compliant, and that you have been chosen at some point in time, or someone from the pool of your employees that are drivers have been chosen. We will keep up with the status of those drivers as well to make sure that they are not in a prohibited status. And we will provide you with the documents needed if you're audited. So there's a lot more to this that people are not talking about, which I can't understand why. Well, I do understand, because it's not a sexy conversation. I'm not talking about how much money you can make, but definitely you just do your own math about how much that would be should you lose 2 or 3 of your drivers and you only got 5. How much money would you lose during this peak season if you had to sit down 2 or 3 of your drivers? Or if you're an owner operator, how much money during peak season could you potentially miss out? And when I did my own just general analysis based off of the going rates for the loads and how their forecasting will increase during this holiday season, it could easily be $10,000 to $15,000 within, per month, that you have to sit down as an owner or operator that you're going to lose out on, or more. It just depends on what equipment and what lane you're running, right? So what do you do if you are in a prohibited status? Glad you asked. What you will need to do is find, again, a SAP program. You would have to go through the return to duty process, which will require you first to find a SAP program. And that's make sure I say it, substance abuse program. and they have to be approved through FMCSA. I had some information on that too. Anyhow, they have to be approved through FMCSA. So you want any type of third-party entity that you have to use for the purpose of your business, you want to make sure that they are approved vendors through FMCSA. So that's even with your BOC3 agent, that's through your consortium that you have to use, that's through your SAP vendor. You want to make sure that they are approved through FMCSA. And I'm going to tell you why, because they're not going to accept the fact that you've paid all this money to a person that stated they would help you through this process, and only to find out that they're not qualified, or they didn't go through the proper channels to make sure that they would be recognized, because FMCSA don't care about all that. They don't. So, and it's very expensive. There's a total of 5 steps you have to complete before you can get to the 6th step, which is you would have to find a company that will take you and will verify that you are approved for return to duty. All of that information is on the FMCSA Clearinghouse website, and you want to make sure that you educate yourself on what that looks like. It's very expensive. It's very expensive. My research, I was finding, and I was finding that it was starting at $500 just to go through the program, and that's, you had to pay per session that you had to go through. So each session or each program is different. So you would have to do your own research in regards to that. But hopefully this information will get out there to the right people, and they can do the preventative steps that I've mentioned earlier, which is to do your research, make sure that you are not in a prohibited status. Check with your DMV to make sure that your CDL has not already been downgraded. Because some states, like I stated earlier, they've already started the process, and they have 60 to 90 days from the date that they have sent you out the letter. Then they can go ahead and downgrade you. No other form of contact, no other efforts to inform you. They don't have to do all that. They sent you a letter. So that's why I was saying that this is crazy that no one's talking about this, because this is a very serious situation and most won't know about it. For something as simple as not having an updated address. So this is something that can cost you thousands, but if you're proactive, can save you thousands. And I don't want to see a lot of good people having to go through that. So do you have any questions for me, Trina, that I can answer for you regarding this process?
One thing I was thinking about is when we're thinking about different employers or carriers, when we're thinking about like the city workers or like city municipalities, local, that have that utilize CDL drivers, do they still have to follow the same requirements when it comes to like being registered in FMCSA, being registered in clearinghouse or approved consortium? Do they still have to do even if it's a city, a municipality?
Yep, that's a great question, because I actually just read an article yesterday where what were they? They were a sanitation company, and they had thousands of employees across the country, and they were trying to petition to FMCSA to have an exemption, because they were saying it was going to be too technical, too time consuming, and the negative impact they would have should they find, drivers that were in that prohibited status. Because what people don't understand about being in that prohibited status, this is not something that you can clear up in a day. It's a process. You have to finish first. You have to finish a drug and alcohol counseling sessions. So that means you had to go through several different sessions. Some of them is 30 days, you had to go once a week. Some of them are, it just depends on what your violation was. And then again, you want to make sure that they are certified, because the last thing you want to do is select this person and you go through this program only to find out that they are not verified as an approved vendor, for one. For two, once you have completed that, now you have to go through the process of having, hopefully within that time frame, your DOT physical hasn't expired. That's another piece of it, right? So you want to make sure that because I saw a gentleman the other day, he was downgraded and he totally forgot that he didn't do his DOT physical. So because of that, he was downgraded. He didn't even know. He didn't even know, right? So to answer your question, it does not matter how many, if you're an owner operator, meaning you're individual, and or if you have a large corporation like this one I was talking about that has thousands of drivers countrywide, they don't care. FMCSA doesn't give any special privileges. If you have gone through the process to be licensed, it's just like a doctor. You don't get to say just because you're a pediatrician or you're orthopedic, that, oh, I made a mistake, I should have, leniency. They don't care. You're in their database and you're required to follow the Safeway rules. And that's how the clearinghouse came about, because it was part of the new ruling to have safer roads, right? And that was all up underneath the, what is the IBL that came down from Washington, that policy of having safer way. But yeah, so it does not matter if you have one employee or you have 1,000 employees. All of them are required to follow this ruling. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Additionally, at the moment, the only persons that are not negatively impacted by this ruling is individuals that are not required to have a CDL. So those are the box truck professionals. But the caveat to that is this: if your equipment, meaning the box truck that you're operating, exceeds a specific GRW, which is gross rate weight, then you are required to have a CDL. So a lot of people are flying up under the radar, going the box truck route. But I got a feeling that they're going to try to implement something in regards to that as well, because you're still operating heavy equipment with commodities inside of it on the same roads that these semis are on. So why aren't you being under the same ruling and governing as the rest of them, right? So, yeah. Any other questions? Any other questions? No, no questions. So I will go into, let's see. I think I briefly already touched on it, the steps you would have to take to get back into a not prohibited status. But again, all the information I'm speaking about can be found on the clearinghouse.fmcsa.dot.gov. All of this information is on the site. They want to, of course, keep you on the roads, but, there's been a large number of individuals that have paid to get their CDL license, meaning they didn't go through the training. They just went to a trucking school and paid someone to get it. There are people that that's why they created the clearinghouse, because my personal experience, I had a driver. I didn't know. I didn't invest in a mentor, or the one that I invested in, I only found out after the fact that they didn't know more than I knew, So all of this compliance stuff I learned, through error, trial and error. But I had a driver when I had my trucking company that was in a prohibited status because he had a positive drug test. And I hired him, and he had been on the road for a while. I didn't know anything, right? So I thought as long as I had my authority, I was good to go. But what happened was they did an audit, and I'm at that time, I wasn't sure how they did it, but it was through my insurance because I had to list him on my policy for my truck. So that insurance reported to the RMI, which is where your insurance carriers report your insurance status, and then that's how FMCSA verifies your insurance, right? So when they verified it and saw his name, they're like, oh, dude didn't complete his RTD. How did you get it? And I thought because he provided me with a current drug test, and I should have listened to my mind, and I should have listened to the Holy Spirit when he was telling me there was something wrong with that paper. That paper didn't look right. It just didn't look right. But I thought I was doing my due diligence. I looked at the company. It was on Google, right? It was a legitimate location, but whomever signed off on the document had to have been someone that he knew. And when I called to verify, of course they verified it, right? So I did as much as I possibly could. So now that they have the clearinghouse, individuals like myself don't have to go through that anymore because it is required. As long as you have a Class A status, you have to be registered with a consortium, right? Whether you do it on your own or you have a compliance manager such as myself, we register and monitor the whole process to make sure that you stay compliant, right? So
Yeah. I was gonna say I had an issue with a driver once. His license got suspended for back child support. So he was
mhm,
like literally on the road and missed a court date, I think, and they suspended his license. Um, and so it was like we didn't find out until he was on the road. So is that reflected in the consortium, or is it in the clearinghouse, or is it just strictly for drug tests? Like,
at the moment it's strictly for the drug test, but I do believe that's something that, because now DMV can look in there, so I believe that's something that they will be doing additionally. Because I mean, if you have a suspended license in any shape, way, or form, you shouldn't be on the road, period. So it shouldn't, but I think because again, it's supposed to be this safer road, to make sure no one's on the road that's under the influence, they're rolling it out with the substance abuse, right? But I do
right.
believe if your license is, downgraded in any shape, way, or form, DMV should be able to notify the consortium or, the clearinghouse that, hey, their driver's license is expired altogether. But that's why
Yeah.
it's important to do your due diligence before you actually get them on the road, by doing
Yeah.
the pre-employment screening. And the pre-employment screening will afford you to see if they're in a negative, and if they're in a prohibited status or if there's anything wrong with their license. But again, I learned that the hard way. I didn't know nothing about no pre-employment experience. Listen, I
Yeah.
paid to get my truck. I got my DLT, my MC number, my insurance. I thought I was good to go. Had
Yeah.
no idea operating out of California that I still had to get a CA number. I had to, be registered with IFTA. Who is IFTA?
Yeah.
Why is IFTA in
Yeah.
my pockets too? It was too many people in my pockets. I didn't understand.
Yeah.
But
We learned all that the hard way, but I don't know. Our first go around that it, we did sign up with Foley Services. So Foley was the one that did all that. They kept all the files, the clearinghouse, notified us when one of the drivers' names got pulled for them to go do a drug test. So I don't know why, we didn't even know why we were doing it, but that saved us really. And
Yeah.
so even when we got audited, they had all of our files and everything. So same thing that you're doing now.
Yeah.
Um, exact same thing. But I mean, I know the value in having somebody that's dedicated to take care of all of that. Because
Yeah.
as a company owner, you're gonna forget and you're gonna
You
be busy.
You are, especially if you're an owner operator. I don't think people really understand what drivers go through when they're on the road. I think they believe that there's some type of super agent or something. These drivers are literally driving 14 hours straight sometimes. Sometimes they're doing it a little longer. I ain't gonna talk on it, but some of them still know how to get down and not get caught, right? So just
Yeah,
think about your job is to sit in one place and look at the road for 14
right.
hours. There's a form of mental impairment that takes place when you're on the road. And then you're not just driving, you have to drive for you. You got to drive for this idiot that's in this
Everybody else.
side, that's on the
Yeah,
side of you, or, another trucker that's up on. I was watching a video last night where this trucker was trying to speed up in front of another truck, and they was going through a tunnel, but I don't know how. That just goes to show you he was so focused on the driver on the side of him that he wasn't looking forward, or what. I don't know how he didn't see the blinking lights, but he ran into another truck up on it. So now you've impacted all
yeah,
these people's life, probably killed the other driver because his truck was broke down. So he ran clean into the back of his trailer. Um, and you know only God knows what happened, but you were in the tunnel. It was only 2 lanes, so he couldn't get over if he
yeah,
wanted. It wasn't nothing he could
yeah.
do.
And
But
one thing that the owner operators do, like I know when I was dispatching for owner operators, they tried to make me be their admin.
yeah.
But so of course we're filling out carrier packets and
Yeah.
BOLs,
Yeah.
but they think that that's all there is to it. And so this whole consortium and clearinghouse thing is a whole nother piece of the administrative work that owner operators, I don't think, understand the importance of it. So,
Yeah.
they be trying to get the dispatchers to do certain administrative tasks, but the consortium thing is just a whole nother, you know, situation that they probably don't even understand.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's
and
really
no
gonna
one's
affect
and no
the
one's
owner
talking
operator.
about it. No one's talking about it. So why would you think to research and find out more about something that can impact you? Like, you literally can have your business shut down, and I don't think people understand that. Like, you literally can have your business shut down if they catch you on that road and your CDL has been downgraded to class, what is it, class B, class C, class B, whatever it is, your regular class.
See, see,
Yeah.
yeah,
So, and you're out there with a load on your back, you're not only jeopardizing your livelihood, meaning you can't work, but now you're causing an issue for the broker and the dispatcher because you got this load on your back, you can't move.
yeah,
Wherever they stop you, and depending what kind of person you get, a DOT that you get that pulls you over, depending on wherever you at, that's where you have to stop. You cannot move it any further. They don't care nothing about getting on the off ramp or nothing, unless it's impacted traffic or something like that. But we know how some of these highway patrol people can be. They can be some straight buttholes if they want to. But
yeah,
again, you have a license, so they expect you to understand and know the rules as it relates to that license that you have. It's not
yeah,
just, oh, I got my driver's license. No, you have a license. That means you have been given permission to do certain things that others can't. So
yeah,
you have a responsibility as an owner operator or owning a trucking company that requires you to have um, CDL drivers to make sure that they are legit.
yeah. But now I also feel like it's almost seems like a setup because the FMCSA, this is something that's so major. I feel like be they should have a big marketing campaign telling people like, hey, we're 60 days out, 30 days, but it's like they said it one time and then, you know, It's
I
like
said,
they setting these drivers up. Like, why aren't y'all blasting this over the airways, like getting people ready for November the 18th, when this rule is supposed to go into effect. So
have you gone on to any of their social media platforms? It's very basic. It's very general. They don't put a lot of information out there. They don't. Why? Because you being ignorant to the process and the changes is very lucrative to them. I'm gonna keep it 100. I'm gonna keep it 100. And they
yeah,
know.
fines and all, yeah,
So why would I go out my way to try to tell you not to do something I know you're gonna do when I can make some money off of it? And again, this is during peak season. This is when we're starting to do holiday shopping. The roads are clearer, so that means you can do more loads because everybody's on break. Like all of this, and then they know us. When I say us, I mean Black people. I love all my people. I love all God's people. But I am specifically speaking to African Americans that are entrepreneurs, that you have to understand the importance of compliance and having that a part of your business, because they look for opportunities and we're the ones that get caught because we don't see any value in it until it's too late. You've already got caught. You got pulled over. Now you want to go and try to see who can help you out. I can't do nothing for you because now it's a process you got to go through. When you could have
yeah,
joined my free webinar where I'm telling you all the game, I'm showing you where to go get it. I'm showing you how to go and verify and make sure where you can have time to change it. You know what I'm saying? Like if
right,
you're in a prohibited status right now, you got time to try to figure some things out before you lose your whole CDL. And then some people, there's more things that impact the process. You might be downgraded, but oh, by the way, you had these tickets over here you didn't pay. So now you got to
right,
pay the tickets. Oh, by the way, your DOT physical expires. Now you got to pay the SAP program. Now you got to pay for these tickets you had. Now you got to pay for it's a lot of money that goes into getting you back into a not prohibited status. And
yeah,
hopefully your job is still waiting for you when you come back. Hopefully.
right,
There's literally
yeah,
like that. There's hundreds of groups on Facebook that are SAP related, which is substance abuse professionals. And these are individuals that had to go through the program. Nobody want to hire them. Why? Because
yeah,
my insurance is going up because of you. You're a risk.
yeah. I
Like
heard the number like was around 10,000. I mean, it's probably more than that, but I got a girlfriend who has a database of like 10,000 drivers that are in the SAP program right now. So yeah, it's
and a
it's
lot
it's gonna be crazy.
and a lot of people just choose to walk away from the industry altogether because they just don't want to go through it. They rather just go get a 9 to 5, or like I said, jump into these box trucks. You don't have to have a class A to be a box truck driver.
Yeah,
And nowadays you can technically make the same amount of money a 18-wheeler makes,
yeah,
if you got the right hustle in you. But and even with that, our people have to understand the trends. You have to watch what's happening. You have
yeah,
to watch what's happening. This is happening in November, peak season. Most of us are focusing on how we position ourselves to make this money. We're not thinking about compliance. And I said my personal 2 cents is I believe it was done intentionally. I do. Why wouldn't you do this at the beginning of the year, January, where people had time to focus on that? You do this in January, you do this in November at the end of the year. Ain't nobody paying attention to that. I'm gonna keep it 100. I'm
yeah.
gonna keep it 100. Every driver that I've spoken to and asked them, have they heard about this? Nah, I ain't heard about that.
So it's almost sound like it's gonna be a bloodbath of those CDL downgrades.
It's
There are
gonna
a
be
lot
a
of
lot.
people out here.
There's going to be a lot of companies that's going to be negatively impacted by this. When it was
Yeah,
something as simple as go on to I'm not telling you nothing. I'm pulling out my Heineken. It's on the website. Just go to the website. Any
yeah,
industry that you're in, you should be acclimated and be familiar. Be on their newsletters. Be notified. That's how I find out.
yeah,
I'm on all of these governing entities that pertain to trucking. I'm on their newsletters, so I get notified. I read the newsletters. I read through it, and then that's when I create my newsletters on LinkedIn. because I'm trying to educate you. Yeah, you can make $10,000 a week. You can. You really can.
Yeah,
I've done it several times. But what they're not telling you is the overhead. When one tire is
right,
got 18 of them and one tire is 500, do the math.
right.
Or if you have a
Yeah,
driver that is negligent and they, drive by and hit a pole, I
or
can't
they
have,
late,
or
they
they
late
late. Right.
for
Like
the appointment, can't drop off or pick up, got to sit on a load. Like it's so many factors that go into how you can just everything changes like in an instant. So
insurance,
yeah,
insurance
yep,
is ridiculous. That's why it's so important that this new ruling people understand how it would negatively impact your business operation. Because if you have 3 or 4 drivers, not only now they have to go through this program, and you can't just say, oh, were you fired? You know what I'm saying? Like you have to be, it's a partnership. Now you have to do your due diligence to make sure that they go through the program. And then after they successfully completed it, then at that time, but you can't just throw them out.
yeah.
You have to
And
provide.
so you, yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Go ahead,
But
go
you
ahead.
were saying earlier that if it's a carrier, the employers or the carriers can be held responsible if the driver is not compliant.
Yeah. Well, this is what happened. Two things happens, right? So if I own a trucking company, I got 5 drivers. 3 of them are in a prohibited status, right?
Mhm.
3 or 4 of them are in a
Mhm.
prohibited status. Then one thing it's going to do is it's going to raise an eyebrow to FMCSA that you're not compliant. So now I have a reason to come do an audit. Well, how did you
Yeah,
know 3 or 4 of your drivers were non-compliant?
yeah,
Because you, as a trucking company, are supposed to be registered with the consortium as well. And because you're registered in the consortium, you're supposed to provide the list of your drivers so that they're in that pool and that they are audited or they, get random selected to do the testing. So now that's the first thing. Second thing, they're looking at hold on, let me get to that. I'm going to tell you the code for that. But yeah, the mm, code 49, C like Charlie, F like Frank, R like Red, part 40, subpart R. That's where you will find that. And that's under the Safe Roads Act of
you
2012.
said 49 CFR
Part 40,
part
subpart
4,
R.
part 40, so part R,
Right.
okay. Um, does it affect the safety rank rating for
Absolutely.
FMCSA? Okay.
Absolutely. It absolutely does. Any type of violations of any sort with the driver, you got to, like you said it earlier, you got to understand it's intentional. It's a lot of money in
Yeah.
this industry. You have a lot of multimillionaires that are in this industry in some shape, way, or form. Whether they own a fleet of trucks, whether they do import, export, whether they do, it's just so many different avenues, so many different arms within trucking specifically. Transportation is inclusive of, air, water, land, and just as a extra note, this applies. They have to be they have to be in a consortium as well if you're in aviation or railroad, all of them. Anything that has to do with
Mhm.
transportation, you're supposed to be registered in a consortium. Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. 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 So it definitely will impact your ratings individually and as a company. But like I said, these companies need to understand that, it's not just a, oh, my bad, I got to let you go. No, now you're opening yourself up to an audit because they need to know, well, what else aren't you compliant on? You know, how did you not know this many of your drivers are dirty? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting, but I mean, it's good to know. And I like I said, I haven't. I think I saw one announcement from FMCSA, but I've just been hearing it like, from you, and then I heard it from a couple of other people
Mhm.
not related to the FMCSA. So it's like um, the streets is talking about it a little bit, but I still feel like more needs to be done to let people know that this is coming.
Yeah, sensibly that makes, I mean, reasonably that makes sense. But again, why would I warn you about opportunities for me to make money?
Yeah,
I'm gonna do the bare minimum, which is I notified you and it's on you to make sure that I have the proper notification. And that's what you're supposed to do an annual review anyway with your
yeah,
FMCSA. You're supposed to make sure that because they will send you an email or they'll
yeah,
send you a letter and tell you it's time for you to verify. Most of us ignore it. We ignore it.
yeah.
And then now situations like this come apart and about, excuse me, I'm getting tongue tied, but must situations like this come uh around, and then we're screaming, well, did nobody tell me? They ain't supposed to.
And you got 4 envelopes sitting on the coffee table that you ain't open from
That you ain't open.
FMCSA.
That
Yeah,
you ain't open, or it's a scam. No, you scammed yourself.
yeah. Or you scared to see what they talk about, so you
And
leave the
that's
envelope like
that's
that.
real talk
It's
right there.
real.
Us a lot of drivers that they just rather keep rolling until they just get caught. And that's
Yeah,
sad because the industry has just cracked down and changed so much that, again, my people, and I can speak about me being an African American, and my interactions have been with African American drivers, that they don't see the value in the compliance. They don't see the value, and that's just another bill in their eyesight. Why I'm gonna pay this person because down the line, if you have somebody like me that's organized and stays in the know, then I can prevent you from being impacted by things like this, because I'm going to let you know, hey, you 60 days out before you need to renew. You're 30 days out before you renew. You got 3 more weeks before you renew. Then after that is on you. But that's what you need,
yeah,
because again, as a truck driver on the road, all you can focus on is making sure you don't run into nobody and don't nobody run into you. That's it. That
yeah,
is it. And you have a
yeah.
lot of people, a lot of civilians on the roads that do not respect truck drivers. They don't. They don't
They
understand.
don't.
They don't understand this is 28,000 pounds on my back. I cannot stop on a dime like you.
Well, you have all these ambulance chasers and these truck chaser lawyers that, all you hear the commercials on the radio and billboards is been hit by a truck. You know what I'm saying? So everybody trying to get paid, you know. But I did want to say, going back to, this kind of feeling like a setup, and it's more advantageous for FMCSA to not really put the word out there. But I also feel like, with the autonomous vehicles, and, you have these companies, I think Gaddick is one of those companies that they're supposed to go fully autonomous in 2025, where they're
Mhm.
taking the driver out the truck. And so, things like this happen to prove, to bolster the case of why these autonomous vehicles are needed.
Yep.
Because if you get rid of 50,000 CDL drivers, or whatever the number is, I know it's a big number.
Yeah.
You downgrade those licenses, now it's going to be a demand for truck drivers. Well, we can't train them fast enough. So, so it's bigger than Nino Brown, for real. Like, it's so
Absolutely.
many levels to, why this is happening at this point in time,
Yeah. Well,
unfortunately.
and it's our responsibility to do
Yeah.
things
They
like
know
this.
we're not going to do it. Yeah. They know we're not going to have
And we're not going to
our
take it
business
serious
in order.
we're
Yeah.
not going to take it serious until it impacts home.
Right.
I
Until
got
something
shut down.
tragic happens.
Yeah. I got shut
Yeah.
down on my cousin. Oh man, they serious. Let me go try to get my, it's too late.
Yeah. It's too late then.
And
Yeah.
like I said, the effective date is November the 18th, but some states have already started. So you might already be in
Yeah.
the process of being downgraded. You don't even know.
Yeah.
And it could be a simple error. It could have been that some information was reported incorrectly. I mean, so many times they have the wrong name associated with the wrong authority, so you can't just live
Yeah,
haphazardly and believe like, oh no, I'm good. I've done my part. I went and did the test and okay, you did. But did the person that's managing the compliance and doing the drug test, did they send the correct information? Because once it's in,
yeah,
it's heck getting it.
yeah. Trying to get it off. Yeah.
It is, it
How
is,
can we find out if what states are already have already started doing the CDL downgrades? Is there a way, a database, or somewhere on FMCSA's
they have
website where we can see?
They have not released a database or a way for you to search. I would just recommend if, whatever state you're in, to just call and check with your DMV for you personally, to
Okay.
see, if you've been impacted. If you have, then, I would recommend just sharing it. Like, hey, they already started doing
Yeah.
downgrades here in Atlanta. You might want to check,
Yeah.
because
So your recommended. I'm sorry.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
No, no, go ahead.
I was gonna, I was gonna say. So your recommendation is just for drivers. Period. They need to be checking for themselves, not waiting for their employers, if company drivers, to come tell them. Like drivers, that's the first thing that you would suggest is like if you talk to a driver, like, do you know your status? It's almost like HIV, you know your status, your CDL status. You got
Seriously.
to start asking the question.
Seriously,
Yeah,
because this is your livelihood. You cannot
yeah,
entrust it in someone else. This is how you're able to sustain your livelihood, take care of your family. And
yeah,
if this is the first time anyone is hearing of it and you have a compliance manager, that is a red flag. They
yeah,
should have been notifying you by now. If
yeah.
you are paying someone to make sure that all of your documents are in order and they're making sure they should have made mention to you by now. Even if you're not, they should have still let you know, hey, just FYI, you might want to
Right,
share this information, this is taking place, because all of us is going to be in trouble. Now, those that are, legit and they have their documents in place and they for real business owners, and I don't say that to be offensive, but if it hurt your feelings, you'll be all right and the swelling go down, because it's the truth. When you run a business, there are certain things that you have to have in place in order to be considered a legitimate business. And compliance management is one of those things that you need to have in your business. So if this is the first time anyone is hearing this, then chances are you are not compliant and you're not prepared for the changes. And like you made a very good point that they have an agenda. They have all these trucks, these that are self-driving, and they need to make it where there's a demand for them. But as long as you got all these drivers on the road, really there's no demand for it, right? Um, so I mean, nothing happens by accident. And like I said, it's my 2 cents, but I think it's very convenient that they're doing it during peak season. And there's going to be a lot of Black owned owner operators that will be negatively impacted by this, just for the simple fact they don't know. And I'm trying to do my best to make sure that I get the word out to as many people as possible. If you don't have the time, then invest the money. I will gladly assist you. But you need to make sure that you check for yourself. And once you find, or check those letters that's sitting in your mailbox. Um, like I said, I don't, the only way I was notified is through a newsletter. A matter of fact, I think you told me about it too, Katrina. I think you told me about it. And I did my due diligence and looked it up and researched it. But yeah, that's how I stay compliant. That's how I stay up on the, what's getting ready to change. Just like a lot of people don't know that they changed the requirements for intranet for 18-year-olds and older. So now they can get their CDL. There's a pilot program that nobody's talking
yeah.
about.
A safe
Nobody.
driver. Yeah,
Now you can have your 18-year-old, which a lot of people aren't going to be jumping at the opportunity, but because of their age, which will cause their insurance to go up a little more. But look, some of these knuckleheads is out here doing stupid stuff. Throw them in a truck invest in their future, you know,
Yeah,
let them get on this road, let them make the money the right way, because these kids is out of control. The stuff that
yeah.
I'm seeing, now I know we was cuckoo, but the stuff that they doing, like, they
No, it's on a whole nother level. That does kind of scare me though, a little bit. 18, 19-year-olds, um, driving the 18-wheelers. I think that they should do more of like a pathway, starting them off in the box trucks and then letting them work their way up, just to make sure that
I
maturity wise,
I
but
I I can see it from both angles, but
yeah,
look at how many accidents have
made
been
me nervous.
happening. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
These is grown behind
They
men,
be
and
out here doing, they be out here doing the most too.
they
Smoking, driving, yeah, all kind of stuff. So
you know, they all of a sudden, you know, weed is legal. Okay, but it still impairs your judgment to some shape, way, or form. I don't care how
yeah,
long you've been smoking it. It impairs your judgment. I
yeah,
don't care what they say, it does. And you got 30,000 pounds on the back of you.
It's also
yeah,
not federally legal. It's only legal in certain states. And so crossing state lines, you are now opening yourself up to federal charges.
Well, this is why they have the drug and alcohol consortiums to do random selected testing for that very reason, because us have heard we heard go. We didn't hear limitations. There are still limitations with it, right? But unfortunately, you can't govern what grown for. Now they're trying to, I don't know if you heard about it, Katrina, that they now they're trying to fight having dual cameras inside of the cabs, and they're saying it's violating their privacy or something like that. But I'm like, some of y'all need to have these dual cams. Y'all, the stuff that y'all doing, they need to be able to have it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's a
Well, they
lot of,
always changing stuff up.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
but and to be fair, for a very long time, there was not a lot of um it wasn't regulated as much as it is now. But we had people that respected the industry. You know, you didn't have these, you know, early 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds that they just after the bag. You know, we had actual professionals. They handled themselves a certain way. They spoke a certain way, you know. But now you have these a lot of young-minded people. I'm not going to put a number on it. I'm going to, you know, immature, young-minded people that they're just in it for the money, and they're doing a lot of stuff that requires them to come back around and add regulations and rules just because they don't have the same work ethic anymore. You know, they
yeah,
just, so yeah, a lot of changes coming, a lot of changes coming. So anyone that currently has a Class A status, or you have a learner's permit, because this ruling is impacting those that are actually holding a learner's permit, meaning you haven't completed and gotten your license. If you have not done um, a random testing, then you could possibly already be in a prohibited status. So do your due diligence. Don't just expect people to inform you of what your license status is. Um, like I said, if this is the first time you're hearing it and you have somebody that manages your compliance, you might want to check all your stuff. I'm just being 100. They should be informing you of changes that could impact you like this. So,
I
um,
feel you.
yeah. Any more questions or concerns or
No,
anything?
it was great, great information. I'm glad you had this webinar. You dropping some gems for free, so uh, I appreciate it. Like
Absolutely,
you
absolutely.
breaking it down. So yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One final gem that I'm going to share that no one's talking about and is getting ready to go into effect January 1st, 2025, which is the beneficial owner, what is it? Beneficial owner information registration, the BOIR. and this is by FinCEN. And they talked about it briefly at the end of the year last year, but what it is you have to do, let me see if I can pull it up. But if you have a business that started in 2024 after the 1st of January, you have 90 days to complete this form. If you started in 2020, hold on, let's bring it up.
I believe it's 2023.
Hold on. Why is that doing that? Okay, let me see if you can see it. Can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. So here is the page is BOIE filing.FINCEN.gov. And this is the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, which is the FinCEN. And the form takes no more than 5 minutes. You will need to produce either a birth certificate or a passport to upload. And basically what this report is, if you started a business in 2024, January 1st, after January 1st, you have 90 days to submit this form. If you started a business before January 1st, 2024, then you have until January 1st, 2025. So no one's talking about this, but this is basically you providing your personal information. No longer, if you have, because you used to could just use your LLC or your corp information and be registered with the state, and that would be fine. But now, after the big scandal with the PPP loans and so on and so forth, where a lot of people got the money and they disappear and they can't find them. Well, they had these shelf corporations that were out of different states, and those shelf corporations, literally didn't lead back to anyone. So these people got this money and they disappeared. So now what they're doing is trying to make sure that they can find you as a person. So you have to have this form completed. If your business was before January 1st, 2024, this form needs to be completed by January 1st, 2025. But if you started a business in January 2024, whatever the date on your document that you received saying, congratulations, you started your new business, well, if it said like February 1st, then you have until April 1st to have this form submitted. And so the potential is $500 a day that you do not have this form filled, and you could possibly face up to incarceration. So this is the site again, BOIE filing.fincen.gov. And then you would just file the document online. And you just fill in your personal information. There is a section where we'll ask you about your company, the beneficial owners, and then you will have to update information for each of your owner. So that's something else that no one's talking about that will impact us heavily come the beginning of the new year. So if you have a whole bunch of different businesses that, you were trying to reserve them and let them age and you're not doing nothing for them, I highly recommend to either dissolve them and close them out, or go ahead and submit the application that I just showed you. So that's another thing no one's talking about that is right around the corner. Any other questions?
Got it. No, I don't have any more questions.
Yeah, well, that is it. I appreciate you all for attending, and anyone that sees this at a later time. If you're in need of having a compliance manager, please visit me at www.utlcompliance.com. You can also email me at info@utlcompliance.com. I will be more than happy to go over this process with you and or register you with my consortium to make sure that you won't be impacted by this and that you remain compliant, because the worst thing you can do is be on the road in the process of trying to take care of your family and be caught off guard, and it really isn't your fault. You know, you're doing the best you can individually, but as an entrepreneur, there are a lot of things that you have to take in consideration. And I always, 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 when I consult with businesses, advise them to have a business plan. A business plan will give you an idea of what it will take for you not only to start a business, but to scale the business and stay in business. That's essentially the idea. It should not be a hobby where you're jumping in there just trying to get some money. It should have a purpose, right? Other than the money, right? So
I agree.
that is it for today. I appreciate you all for attending. And again, I will be, I'm here if you need me, if you want to learn more. And yeah, that's it. Happy Saturday. Y'all enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Have a good Saturday.
Bye.